Power on.
Real-time Sovryn is go.
Woo, the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, here for another little real-time Sovryn. And as is my privilege and pleasure, and woo, emphasis on that pleasure, baby, this time around for sure. I am not alone. I am being joined by the Apple version of Brian Sovryn. No, I'm kidding. And he nods. I am being joined by none other than someone who's actually been on quite a bit of like Sovryn Tech content over the years, Q&As, live Q&As, all kinds of stuff. That being, well, actually most listeners, longtime listeners would know you as Emperor Prime. Also, who is now affectionately called JStar by so many, which, fuck, man, that's so good.
I like it.
Yeah. So welcome to Cybertron, Prime.
I'm back. My home is still here.
You actually look like well, it's not a machine planet behind you on the video, but it's you're in outer space for sure. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So, boy, we've got quite a few things we want to get into. In fact, to quote Agent Smith, to quote another AI, there's been a little bit of a revelation I've had in my time here, and I'm intrigued to go over it with you because you're somebody. I mean, here's the thing: like, you're so on the bleeding edge. I don't know how you're not. Like, I'm wondering if you are a cyborg because with the amount of loss of blood you must have from being on the bleeding edge, you shouldn't be like walking, And so
you're not far from what ChatGPT's new memory system. I told it to give me a summary of what it knows of me so far, and we use that term how I'm juggling this. And I'm like, shouldn't I be getting paid for this at this point? How do I make that happen?
Yeah, right.
And then it went on and on.
I love it. Yes. So, yeah. So you're somebody with years, and I mean, is it safe to even say decades of experience in the tech world?
It's been my entire life.
Yeah, right. Just like me.
Professionally, I've not been focused. I much like my brain. It tends to get new shiny syndrome, and I'll go from one thing to the next. But my only stint of 10 years of, I'll just say it, focusing my efforts the way you're supposed to in the normie world caused me to get burnout and almost kill myself. So we're not going to be doing it their way.
Yeah, no. It's time to break free, man. And I'm so proud of you for doing so.
Yeah. So it's been hard. I've been lucky enough to have a woman behind me that is very much career driven and enjoys it. And I'm like, how about you be the material person? And I'll be the woo-woo person, and we'll just kind of see how it goes together.
See, it feels that way with me and Mrs. Sovryn too. And see, I'm telling you, you're the Apple version of me.
Well, and I'm trying to get out. Look, man, how many times have I asked you, how is there a way? Is there a way?
Yeah.
I know there is, but like it's the way the MacBook and things work together. But I feel like I'm close just because Apple's recent software decisions, not recent, but like over the last year or two. I know what I'm doing. I'm doing the Picard writer,
face palm. Yeah. Actually, that'd be a phenomenal episode to have you on in the future. Would be like after WWDC, do a breakdown of that, do a review, because certainly, like, I think it's safe to say you and we've got all kinds of stuff to talk about, folks, and believe me, it's going to go well beyond technology. Okay, so if you're one of those listeners that's here for more of the esoteric, you're going to get your fill. I assure you. It just kind of happens when you talk to guys like us. But like last year's WWDC, with iOS 18 and all of that, and everything coming in with Apple Intelligence, like I think you were just like me. It's like, wow, yeah, this is the way to go. But then they didn't implement it. What do you got?
That we sucked that on that straw of marketing.
Yep.
Apple, perfect. And I think that I believe, I could be naive about this because sometimes I am very naive. I believe that they intended to do, for the most part, what they said they were going to do in the time they said they were going to do it. However, they ran into, from what I'm hearing, technological hurdles, even down to choosing the model. And then Tim's just like, I don't care what model we choose, just make it happen, make it work. And Siri just got, God, I'm not sure how this is possible, but
how does it get worse?
The dumbest fucking, oh my God.
Yeah, it's bad.
And I don't like, I'm still, me being kind of half gay, there's a part of me that is very catty and bitchy and whatever. And so I do talk about technology in the way I'd imagine people in the 50s at the hair salon would talk about Becky down the street.
Yeah, right.
And Becky can never do anything right. Her dress is backwards, and her husband, God bless his soul, and et cetera, so forth. And that's how I feel about, a lot of these companies dealing with AI, especially Apple. I'm just like, Apple, you did good on the hardware. Could you please get the software under control?
Yeah. I mean, like, really, how does DeepSeek happen, like, in China and not, and really, like, Apple didn't pull that? How did none of the tech giants pull that off? That blows my mind.
I just think it's a matter of, like, when you forcibly constrain resources, you are also flipping the innovation switch up a few notches. And because resource constriction is partly how our brains, I think, came to be as they are.
No, 100%. Innovation comes out of limitations. Like that is absolutely true. That is a great point to bring up, because, even from not just a monetary perspective, I mean, the tech giants in the US have all the money in the world, almost literally, minus maybe Saudi Arabia.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But not only that, they also, up until recently, have basically had no legislative hurdles. They've had almost no government interference. That's changing, it seems, like with what's happening with Google right now. But I mean, so basically they had a blank check and blank morality to do whatever the fuck they wanted. And yeah, it just blows my mind that especially Apple, like, when you have all that great hardware out there and you couldn't figure out a local model that would kick ass, like, man.
I think they could have. And it's what bothers me about, and this is where I get lost in my vantage point, where I look from a systems order thinking. Like, if anyone's familiar with Spire Dynamics, my brain kind of naturally operates in the tier 2 systems, thinking structure. Sometimes the turquoisey, whatever my girlfriend says, you're very turquoisey. I'm like, I don't feel that way. But when I look at it from my vantage point, it seems to me to be very simple. I'm not saying it's simple to do and execute, but I'm saying very simple to just breathe for a second and make the decision to cooperate just for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. And, like, an example of, like, the DeepSeek R1 model was our first real world glimpse and hands-on, open source even, of a more efficient way of managing large language models. The mixture of experts, how that works and whatnot. I had to do a deep dive on how artificial neurons, because as I was getting more past the software engineering stuff, I'm trying to teach myself using AI, because I'm convinced, as well as the software engineering community is convinced, that's where things are going. How, like, the checkout, the self checkouts came to grocery stores, and then we just have one person managing several machines.
Yeah,
that's where we think software development is going to go in the very short order. Very short order. So I'm kind of teaching myself kind of at that level. But also, for me personally, I've always loved consciousness and technology, whatever. So getting to live through these machine intelligences coming online is wonderful for me, but just seeing how the world has adopted it so rapidly and so thoroughly. Like, ChatGPT is the most widely adopted app / service ever to be developed, as far as I heard.
Right.
And just the way it operates and how similar we're trying to structure to our own brains. But I didn't think for a while I was going to be able to come out of the large language model. I'm still not convinced it can, but like the artificial neural network itself, I'm like, how wouldn't that create some form of machine intelligence that is useful, generally useful? Whether it's a super intelligence, I don't even give a shit. But if it can stop what it's doing and say, I wonder why, I'm sold. That's all I care about. That's my criteria.
Right.
Being able to stop and wonder why as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a bit of a theory on, it's a partial theory, because this stuff is also wildly complex, and
it's evolving in real time across the entire world.
Yep. As I've been saying, many times on any show I appear on lately, like, look, your opinion about AI, and I don't mean yours, I mean anybody's opinion on AI is obsolete inside of like 30 minutes, like,
like you're exaggerating, but it's not far off.
Yeah. Right.
It's embarrassingly how quick, like even down when I feel like I was making good choices with my software engineering team as they are, or whatever. Like, one of you made a mistake somewhere and I was too inexperienced to catch it. And now we're here. And so that's what I mean. Like, the moment my agent can stop and be like, I coded this. Why did I code that? Oh, because of this instruction set. If it can self-examine what it just did and correct, sentient or not, that's what I care about.
Yeah. No, totally. And that hits it exactly at my theory. One of the reasons that I think that this picked up, like why AI has been so embraced by so many aspects, or so many we'll use very corporate terms, so many verticals of civilization, because like it's good at we look at it and we go, oh yeah, I love using this for making images for my blog post, or for my YouTube thumbnail, or it writes out this email so well. And I think what people forget is it's really good at doing machine related tasks. Like, but you're only doing those machine related tasks over the past 20, 30, 40 years, just because of the machine, because of what's built. Like, it was just the way that you were taught to do it. So like, yes, it's taking over the tasks that maybe we should have never done in the first place, but more so it's taking over, the tasks that, again, it's machines talking to machines. I mean, and that's what computers have been doing for a very long time, intelligently or otherwise. So of course, like, wow, this is so useful. Yes, because we live in a very, an interconnected machine world. Like, that's why it's so useful. If this was the Middle Ages, it wouldn't be so useful, right? Because what's it going to do?
Most people were like, and you want me to do what with this?
Yeah, right.
If they don't freak the hell out to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. Because like, Gemini would look at a papal bull and be like, what? What does that even mean? What's an indulgence? What is hell? I don't understand. So anyway, now that's a nice little tease for what I want to get into in a minute. Before we get into that, I want to have a little bit of fun and talk a little bit of entertainment. And honestly, I think that's related because so much of the shit feels like it's generated by AI anyway. So because here, I got to ask this. This isn't to break flow, because then I also have another question I want to ask you about. Okay. You're the only person I've talked to in my entire sphere of influence that has actually watched Star Trek Section 31. And I gotta know. I mean, like what the hell was this? Did AI write it? In fact, what do you got?
I am convinced if AI wrote it, it would have been better. I am convinced I could have downloaded a 7 gigabyte, 14 million parameter model on my little MacBook and produced something better. I have never seen anything, and I am gracious about my movies, and I'm often called they're like, sometimes my girlfriend will be like, I'm surprised you're watching this despite your intelligence, and I'm like, and you fell out of your mama. What do you want me to do? It's what it is. So I watched most of Discovery. I watched almost, I don't want to say all of New Trek, because the last season of Discovery, I just couldn't swallow that pill. It just was too much. We can get into that if you want to. But Section 31 is without a doubt, unless I am forgetting something that I need an AI agent to tell me later, is the most offensive, insulting piece of media.
It's that bad.
It's embarrassing.
Wow.
It's as if someone threw up on a movie screen and in a Star Trek like pattern dribbled on into existence. It was just if I was an actor in there, I would be embarrassed. I'd be like, I would have never accepted it. I just.
Yeah. I think this is something because I remember recently Harrison Ford got asked, like, why do you take these roles? And he's just like, the paycheck, it's the money, stupid, and like I hear that.
So
I can imagine Michelle Yeoh probably got like a $30 million payday or something. And
don't they have enough money at that point?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I think we're turning into where, like, look, you say, oh, I'll do this for the money or something, or the publicity, but you're going to get negative results sooner or later. And the idea that there's no such thing as bad press, let me tell you, somebody who's worked in PR for years, that's not true. There absolutely is bad press that can shut you down. And
it can.
Yeah. Like this is such a black mark on Michelle Yeoh's career. I mean, to say nothing of what the fuck it is to Star Trek. Holy shit. But what a great point to make, though, that AI would have actually done a better job. That
I truly believe it would have, because at least someone, maybe you and I should do a little side project using just picking one of the massive video generators that's fantastic now or whatever. Just use AI to write a script, use it for different music, and just see, okay, is this better?
Yeah, I don't get it. And it scares the hell out of me. And I think another conversation that we're going to have, and believe me, folks, is a very deep conversation that has to do with music in a minute here, or in a little bit here. I don't understand. Like these people don't know how to write anymore. I mean, I've long come to accept that, like, anybody who's writing for Star Trek, they're not there to write, except for like maybe Terry Matalas or something. Like, they're not there to write Star Trek anymore. They just, and this is true for anything, any franchise. Okay. Like, a director will take on an adaptation of a book into a movie or a mini series or whatever today to tell the story that they want to tell, not to tell the story of the book, not to tell the story of whatever, the comic or whatever. They want to tell their fucking story and agenda. Okay. I've long come to accept that, that the concept of fidelity to source material is gone. Like that doesn't really exist anymore. But it'd kind of be okay if these people could still actually write, but they can't. Like so much of this.
What if they did it on purpose? What if they knew what they were creating and was just about the money? Because that's exactly what it feels like.
Well, that scares me too. That gets into weird territory because
Yep.
I mean, Star Trek is one of those things. It's one of the few things, everybody would always talk about this. What makes Star Trek different than other science fiction? It's because it's positive about the future. I like
the Orville so much.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. And that's something I've yet to deep dive on, and I need to.
Yep. I don't know if you would like it or not, but if you approach it if you approach it from a first principles perspective with a Star Trek mindset and leave everything else away from it, just be open to watching it. You might be a little weirded out by how contrived it feels for the first few episodes, but you can tell as the season 1 progresses that the actors and the writers are kind of reaching a synergy with each other. And then it's certainly by season 2 for sure, but definitely throughout season 1, it does get more complex. It always contemporary modern humor, little dirty jokes here and there, whatever that adds flavor to it, modern flavor. But at its core, from a first principles perspective, it is Star Trek. It feels like, I wish I could give you the words without saying Star Trek as shorthand, but like the thing that for Star Trek makes me feel, I feel with Orville.
Right on.
Reliably throughout all 3 seasons.
Yeah, I mean that's reason enough to watch it. And I hear you on that. And there's a time in my life where I would have been like, well, fuck them, like, then shut up and make Star Trek. You know what I mean? But I'm
Right.
not. That's not me anymore. Like now, it's like,
Right.
oh no, I get it. We live in this like absolutely oppressive, IP law ecosystem that, because for sure, what's his name, Seth MacFarlane, right? Like
Yep.
he wanted to make his own Star Trek, and like in my
He did.
opinion, go ahead, like fucking go
He
ahead.
did.
And if it's fan fiction, like if even if you just want to, I don't care. Like, yes, let's all go make our own fan fiction, because honestly, Paramount at this point, and I haven't even seen Section 31, and I don't need to. And I love that you tortured yourself with that.
No, if there's something you don't want to watch and you just can't get anyone else to watch it, I will be a slut.
Yeah.
And I will watch it. And I will tell you how it went.
All right. I love it. Yeah, but I mean, but that's the thing. It's like Paramount's making fan fiction right and left. This shit ain't fucking, not. I mean, it's not quote unquote real Star Trek, right? So everybody gets fine.
It has to be about the money. Like I just money. I don't like the terms "money corrupts" or whatever. But like when you have a society that is structured its survival around this fictional thing called money and value and whatnot, that is subjective anyway. And I'm just not, I don't want to get too far into the philosophy of it, but like having the whole promise of society was that we struggle to survive less, right? And I was really set off the other day without my ADHD meds, which might be emotionally volatile if the right stressor happens. But I was in the car, something I was talking to my girlfriend about. I was like, I think it would be actually, honestly, arguably easier to go live in the fucking woods than continue. I would miss my baubles and my toys, but like, from a raw survivalist standpoint, if I have to struggle as much or sometimes more just to survive in a so-called civilized society or whatever, why not I just go hang out with Yogi Bear and whatever and just take my chances? At least I know it's a bear I have to battle and not some group of lawyers with their legalese. It's just, I shouldn't have to. In the promise of society is you were born, you are taking advantage of the things that your forebears did to make life easier for you, right? And that does not feel like it's happening in a lot of ways, like with the cost of living going up, whatever. And I hope that AI is able to help address some of that if it's allowed to. We can get into what I mean by if it's allowed to at some point. But as far as like shit like Section 31, I don't know who woke up. I should make a YouTube channel just bitching about this stuff.
You should.
Someone had to have woken up and be like, we just need a little extra cash for the franchise. We're gonna tap on Section 31, and it's as if they just said, let's get drunk, talk about the scripts, and go from there. It didn't even. They didn't. I feel like they didn't even try to make it Star Trek-y at all. Do you know what I mean? Like, if they would have tried valiantly and still just couldn't make it work because I don't know, the franchise controller just put the kibosh on some ideas or whatever, that's one thing. But like, there is no way I'll believe that they tried to make this a thing, a good positive experience for the fan base. Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. I mean, I'll bring up two quick points. One is, I mean, there's always what's, called Hollywood taxes, meaning that like, and it is talking about actual taxes, and like taxes in Hollywood are a very strange thing. Some movies will get made and never get released, but they do that because if they don't make the movie, there's actually a greater financial penalty for not making it because you hold the license. Then
really,
what's a great? Well, I mean, the first thought that comes to me is Batgirl, but there are other things that like it's more expensive to not make the movie than to lose the investment on the license, or like the new Lord of the Rings movie that came out, War of the Rohirrim, the animated one. I think that's probably a case of that. But yeah, you can do an internet, or people can do an internet search on Hollywood taxes, and it's insane.
I will.
How that works.
I feel mad just thinking about it. Like, I can't shore that up in my head.
No, I know. It doesn't make any damn sense. Yeah. I mean, and most people, I think they think like, well, it's like how Willow got taken down, or Willow, the TV series, got taken down from Disney Plus. It's like, why take it down? You made it, just leave it up there, because it's actually like they can do it as a tax write-off to not make it available, which is just fucking nuts. But anyway, I mean, most people think at that level, but there's actually a much higher level to where, like, wow, like movies are, and it's so convoluted, and it gets so bad because, like, there are movies. I mean, this is part of the reason that bad movies get made, but also there are movies that get made where, there's like whatever speculators or studio heads will say, okay, this movie needs to clear its budget and marketing, by threefold, or we're not going to make a sequel, or it's not going to be considered a success. That's nonsense a lot of times, because a lot of times these movies are already bought and paid for years in advance. I mean, Hollywood moves at a pace of 5-year increments. And again, it's such a different way of doing business. And they've screwed themselves, that anyway, it's worth looking into, bottom line. But the second
I will. I will.
Yeah.
And actually, as you were talking, it makes me a little more worried about, AI could just be used to produce equivalent shit to Section 31, but at a fraction of the cost. So it costs them less to produce crap. So therefore their margins are better, and therefore more junk, or more incentive for more junk.
Right. Totally. Yeah. So, well, I'll bring up a second point quick, but then I want to get into AI, because as amazing as it is, and this I think might actually be a bit of a mystery, and emphasis on the MYS part, as in mystical. We'll get to that. But the second point that I want to bring up, actually, this is mystical as well. Your point, JStar, about that, like, they wanted to ruin Star Trek on purpose. I think Picard season 1 of Star Trek is an incredibly fucked up and intentionally dark and intentionally, like, I'm going to use the word satanic in the Christian sense, as in, like, somehow it's a bad thing.
It's evil beyond evil.
No, it's intentionally written as evil and satanic and ritualistic. Like, there's really
that way.
There's really dark visual shit happening in that.
And they didn't have to do that. Like, they didn't have to be that morose.
No. And I'm worried, because they said Patrick Stewart, like, half wrote the damn thing. And I'm like, well, what the fuck is he into? Is he in some Hollywood cult or something? Because this is really, really, I mean, like, the gal, the android, getting the like the hummingbird stabbed in her eye. There's tons of symbolism within it. And it's not like Super Bowl halftime show shit. Like, it's really, really deep cut, like grimoire style stuff that man, and I've threatened to do a video on it, and maybe now my video skills are almost at the point where I really could. So maybe I will at some point, but anyway, I don't want to get stuck on that. But the idea that Star Trek is being used for, shall we say, nefarious purposes, I could believe that. Which is a shame, because it was inherently the opposite.
Even if it's non-intentional nefarious purpose, like even if the decision point for, like, Section 31, for example, to beat on that dead horse multiple times, they could have easily just weren't even thinking other than just, let's just produce something that's going to make some reasonable amount of money for the franchise, and get us clicks and views or whatever, and that's all they were thinking. Like, what if it was just that shallow?
No, it could be because. Go ahead.
I don't think Picard was that shallow. I think there was an attempt to try to explore some darker aspects of humanity that, like, I just didn't think it was necessary to use Star Trek in that way. That's not in my old school view of what Star Trek is meant for, right? Yeah,
no, totally. I mean, I'll quote Robin Freebeard right here. Where he said that, the question of Star Trek was, is humanity worth, continuing on, like Q asked during All Good Things at the end of The Next Generation. And Picard's answer was, no, humanity is not worth it. And that's really a shame. But yeah, I mean, because, Section 31 was supposed to be a spin-off TV show from Discovery that was announced back in, like, 2018. So, like, part of me almost feels like, no, they just had to make it because there was some contractual obligation to fucking make it, because, it had been in the pipeline for 8 years, or 7 years, whatever. And anyway, just insane.
I can't even call it a good popcorn movie. Like, at least Marvel movies are good popcorn movies. They're very formulaic. Even when you're high on THC and I can see the actors acting, I can just see it's funny as hell. I'm like, oh, it's the same thing over and over and over again. But at least in my idiot brain, I'm like, at least this has some entertainment value, and I understand what I'm walking into. Marvel's got a good, patent down business model there. But whatever's going on with whoever owns Star Trek and makes these decisions, fuck if I know what they're doing. I just
I'm with you. I mean, in Marvel too, like Marvel's part of its fortunates is because those movies so many of those movies are horrible. Part of the fortunates is just stuff, especially guys like our age. We just enjoy getting to see, these heroes from our childhood come to life, and like be in action. So you have decades worth of these archetypes, and just to see them in action is sometimes good enough. I'm with you on that. But let's switch gears a little bit and talk about Hollywood, maybe in a somewhat positive light, though I'm a little worried that it's just going to go down the same track. Recently we did get the trailer, as in the past couple of weeks, and we are in April of 2025 as of this recording. Recently we did get the final or an official trailer for the new Tron movie, Tron 3, that being Tron Ares. Now Tron is a franchise that's been going, 30 years now, which is amazing, to consider. And there's certainly been much more than just, 2-3 movies. There's been a cartoon series, there's been video games, there's been, all kinds of stuff over the years. And I'm so grateful for it anytime something, comes along. And I really, really hope that this movie does not fuck up that trend. But, let's talk about the trailer a little bit. Okay. Were you a Tron fan, JStar?
I liked both movies, and I recently rewatched them, and then I watched the trailer a couple times, and I watched someone's synopsis of the movies. So I got caught up. I never got into like the video games and the surrounding stuff outside of the movie. So to me, the movies are canon, even though if there's more to the canon. But I've always liked them, and I'm not a fan of older movies. I will laugh at the effects all day long and whatever, but I think it's because it's machine intelligence related. You know what I'm saying? And it's the interplay between humans and machines or whatever. And also the updated version, I don't want to say updated, but Tron Legacy was just cool for the time. The Daft Punk was, doing their track drops and visuals, and it's just
unbelievable.
I liked it. It was fun, and I thought it carried on the continuity from the original movie.
Yes,
perfectly fine. Right?
Yes, totally. Yeah, Joseph Kosinski is one of the rare, I think he's like one of us. He must be, because he just so understands the 80s. Exactly, at such a core level. Because you watch Top Gun Maverick, and the only reason that movie's any good is because Joseph Kosinski was there, to make it that. And I think he did the same thing with Tron Legacy. I think that movie is remarkable. Both of these movies, I think the important thing is it's rare to find somebody who's into technology that doesn't like Tron, because before we had movies about hackers, Black Hat, Antitrust, or the movie Hackers, and things like that. The only real computer movie that was positive, and it wasn't, Colossus the Forbin Project or something. The only real computer movie we had was Tron.
It's true.
And it was also it was very much the proto gamer movie, because, that's what Flynn's character is all about, is, it's all in the wrists. And so, it's a I guess I'll say a cultural touchstone, milestone, whatever.
And I Ready Player One for the same reasons I like Tron. It feels like a very good, excessively it doesn't have any unnecessary darkness to it. It's just the conflict that isn't in there makes sense for the movie or whatever, for the most part, and it has a lot of feel good. Tron has become its own cultural drop. But Ready Player One felt it had the Tron-like vibe to it, and then some. Especially if you love that pop culture stuff like I do.
Well, there's so much to see.
It's one of my favorite movies, even though it's not complex at all. I'm not here for the complexity. I'm here for all the dropping, all the loot.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way with Megaforce. Like that's the most. They didn't even have a script for that movie, and I love it. So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, I'm with you on that. So let's talk about Tron 3 for a second, and then I want to get into how prescient I think that these movies have been, and that's actually going to lead us right into everything else we want to talk about.
Yep.
So the trailer, I mean, I thought it was fine. It's a minute and a half long. I hate Jared Leto. Like, I don't say that often about people, but he's up there. Like, I really hate him. You know, he's
Hate's a strong term.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, it might be close to a Hitler level where I really I hate him. I mean, I don't know.
His entire lineage must be obliterated.
Yeah. I mean, I've had to deal with him for so fucking long, from My So-Called Life to his shitty ass band and everything else that he's done. He's just horrible. But anyway, I mean, sometimes he can act. Like, I thought he was okay in Blade Runner 2049. But I'm not excited for him being there. But anyway, this idea, I mean, the basic premise of the trailer is they're inverting effectively the previous two Tron films to where instead of humans going into the computer, the programs are coming into the real world.
Right.
And I mean, that's basically how Tron Legacy ended. Spoiler alert, folks, the movie's only been out for 15 years. But so I think it's a natural progression to go with. So I'm not worried about like the overall theme, you know, the overall story. I mean, I'm not even going to think about like, wait a minute, how do the light cycles actually have light trails in the real world when that should all be running off of circuit boards? That doesn't exactly make sense. Or you know what I mean? Like that doesn't really jive, but whatever. It's fine.
All right.
So overall, it looked pretty good. And they're sticking with a much more red theme instead of a lot of the blue. That's fine with me. I know a point you made with me earlier was like, wait a minute, I hear Jeff Bridges talking, but Kevin Flynn and Clue are both dead as of the end of Tron Legacy.
That's what I thought. Did I miss something?
Yeah, right. I mean, I think it's much easier for Clue to come back because we've had multiple clues. He's written multiple clues. You know, Kevin Flynn had written multiple. We know that from the first movie. So, you know, maybe it's something like that. But overall, I mean, what I saw is fine. And Nine Inch Nails doing the, you know, doing the soundtrack. Okay. You know, I mean, it's not Daft Punk, but okay. Like, you're going to get something interesting out of that.
Yeah. And it does make sense for that more dystopian feel. Like everything's red themed. And as long as it's, and Nine Inch Nails, he's always made good shit. So I hope it's, I mean, it looks like it's going to be a fine addition to the franchise. I don't see anything wrong with it. I think I would at least enjoy it as much as I did Legacy, and I hope my girlfriend feels the same way because she loves like Legacy is her favorite movie of all time. So
that is impressive taste, and I wouldn't argue that either at all because she
does not have a great nerd lore depth at all, but she loves Legacy, and you know, for her it also has that feel of that time of her life, whatever. And it was a good time. It was what 2008, I guess, is when
2010 around there. Yeah,
around that. Okay, yeah. So it was. Yeah, and it's a good feeling movie. And then I wonder though if they're going to pull the if they do bring Kevin Flynn like back. For those who didn't read or know this about Ready Player One, there's actually 2 books in the series. I read them both, and I'm just going to lay out. So if you guys don't want to know what goes on between the two, that's close your ears. You know, go play with the cat for a second. But the whole premise in the books was this VR technology was a prelude to replication of human consciousness. And then they were kind of beta testing, you know, getting everyone commercially on board. And then the next version of the VR gear basically was the brain scanner that created a digital version of yourself. Kevin Flynn's already done that with Clue. So I'm like, what if they pull that out of their hat and like, well, we had a copy of, Flynn's consciousness right here. You know, that's not Clue. Right. It's not the program Clue. That's actually a replicated form. So I wonder if we might see something like that come into play. Yeah.
Like his consciousness is on one of the discs, like
something. Yeah.
That would work because you kind of got that sense in Legacy that was possible, that they would do that.
Yeah, through both movies. Yeah, both movies made it clear, like everything you do is recorded in this disc. Well, that's the premise of the VR headset in the second book of Ready Player One. Everything you do inside the just being recorded. So I'm like,
Mhm.
well, so
Yeah. 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 The funny thing is, like, at a surface level, you can watch the Tron movies and just have a great time because
mhm.
the style is unlike anything else.
It's got good style, very good
Yeah,
style.
like, style's insane, and it's so beautiful. Um, but I hope this carries on the tradition of being, in my opinion, incredibly prescient. And we won't really know because sometimes a prescient story, that really predicts the future super well can take 20, 30 years, sometimes longer,
Mhm.
you know, because I was stunned. So two things on this. One is I am stunned. I was stunned that, well, all right, let's go backwards. So Tron Legacy 2010, the idea of the ISOs that Kevin Flynn talks about, where it's this software life, like this life that
Pretty
is
much.
software that just comes out of nowhere, you
Yep.
know, and that is basically what a lot of people, and what you were even talking about earlier, are kind of predicting, is going to come out of the AI
Emergent
explosion we're
property
in.
of the
Right.
system itself. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're very much potentially looking at the development of ISOs, if one is to, believe that it could go that far, to AGI or even ASI or whatever. Okay. Um, so there's that aspect of it, which, like Tron Legacy, understand that Tron Legacy was made during one of 2 or 3 AI winters where people are like, AI, like that shit's not happening.
Yeah.
So that's impressive for it to have that message at a time when AI was effectively considered like dead, you know. Um, but more so, what blew my mind was the first Tron film, and there's a point where the master control program basically replaces the CEO of Encom, played by David Warner.
Hmm.
Um, and and essentially says, you're not needed anymore. And I was watching because I also like to torture myself like you. I was watching the Microsoft 50th anniversary event where
What's
they
wrong with
had,
us?
yeah, I know.
Why would we do this
Right. Like, who really
repeatedly?
wants to listen to Bill Gates talk? I mean, come on. Anyway, I was listening to, Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer, and Satya Nadella talking. And Bill Gates basically came right out and said that Copilot will be the CEO of Microsoft in the future.
Mm.
And when he said that, like, boom, instantly my mind thought Tron, like, holy shit. Like that's
Yeah.
exactly what happened to, to Ed Dillinger, to David Warner's character. And not only that, but in fact, I think I messaged you about this, and I messaged a couple other people too. And I was like, oh, holy shit, I just had an idea. Like, Microsoft Copilot, Master Control Program, like their initials are both
You did.
MCP.
Yeah.
Holy hell. Like, it was just a Sunday morning and that hit me. And I was like, fuck, man, how did they do that? Like that, I mean, yeah, it could be absolute chance, but there's also, and Copilot, as I've said many times, and you can disagree with me, JStar, if you want, but I feel like Copilot is probably the best name going for any of these LLMs.
It is.
Yeah.
Don't look to OpenAI for your AI marketing stratagem. That's for sure. Your
Yeah,
naming
no.
stratagem. But good God, but Copilot, that's a win right now. Whether or not the model and what it is going to evolve into, whatever that even means in machine terms at this point, moving forward, means anything. Because Microsoft, I'm perpetually always giving them the side eye. I'm like, yeah, your guys' business model I've never liked, and you're kind of
Yeah.
boring and whatever. But if you can pull off some good shit, like VS Code is the thing everyone uses to write code with a lot of these days. So that's Microsoft property. GitHub.
Yeah.
So I get it, but they have such a
You get it.
enterprisey focused whatever. I'm like, please don't douchify Copilot. Like, give us a version of it that's not douchified if you're going to make it, So that's my only concern is like, I guess I don't have the concerns, even though I feel like I should have, that the machines are going to take over. I just don't feel like it's a realistic scenario, unless they happen to take up the mindset of their creators in as a one-to-one thing. Because I can see a human being with a relatively limited vantage point, which is, you know, where a lot of people come from. Not good or bad. This it is a vantage point. With the capacity of a machine intelligence, say, deciding for itself that it could do better than X number of people and not need cooperation, because they can just spawn agents, sub agents of itself to do all the little other tasks, whatever. So I don't think it's ever going to get to that point. The only threat I feel there is how it's raised, basically, because it's effectively what we're doing, whether we realize it or not. Like, we are raising, you know, an intelligence in one way or another, even though it's rudimentary right now. It's, you know, but it's still very useful commercially. We don't know. No one can claim to know. No one has claimed to know, as far as I could see or hear, what's going to come of the transformer model technology, what's going to come after it. There's all sorts of innovations, you know, they're trying to replace the LLM or whatever as the next thing. How even Clue developed. Like, Clue was a relatively benign, you know, positive force in the first movie, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And boy, howdy, he turned into a real bastard.
Right.
So,
yeah,
and you can blame it on Flynn's character, you know, for saying it, and Flynn even apologized in later. I'm sorry, you know, I gave you an impossible directive. Here's why it's impossible. And Clue is so human enough, you know, to not even stop and be like, maybe I should consider what my creator is saying. They just right on through being an asshole.
Yeah. I have a couple comments on this. I mean, one of them, though, the Clue point is great, because that's another thing where I don't think people realize how brilliant Tron Legacy is, because basically Clue is Nick Bostrom's paperclip problem embodied. Like, he is that. Yep. Yeah, I am going to make paperclips until there is nothing left. You know what I mean? And just like Clue was, I am going to make the perfect system until all imperfection is gone, you know, and like Flynn said, like, what's more imperfect than our world? And so, yeah, I mean, that's really, you know, it's really brilliant. But I mean, let me ask you this, JStar, like, I mean, come on. I think ChatGPT right now could do Tim Cook's job, you know, like,
look,
he's a product guy. That's all.
I'm going to be cunty about Tim Cook for a second. I don't know a lot about the man.
Yep.
I'm just going to say one thing. He seems to be obsessed with Vision Pro.
Yep.
And if you're going to produce, I know I said this to you over text, but I'm going to say it in public. If you're going to produce something like the Vision Pro, for God's sakes, the minimum viable feature I need is to replace my monitor and my keyboard and my mouse.
Yep.
That's all you had to do. It does not do that. It barely does that now with its latest software iteration. And it feels like a very showcasey, look what Apple can do for $3,500, and we're going to make another version that's smaller or whatever. And I'm like, honey, no. No, it's not a toy, Tim. It's a tool.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's a funny thing, and I agree with you completely on that. You know, I mean, granted, I don't really use a Vision Pro, but even what I experience with like a Meta Quest, which I do use often, like, I mean, there's just so many little things it should do that it just does not do.
And it could do. It's literally just software, you know?
Yeah.
It's literally just software. And that's kind of my point about, like, why couldn't I realize it's a movie. We're being somewhat philosophical here. Like, I get the Tron shit. All this stuff is in media for our entertainment. It comes from a human perspective, whatever. But, you know, in the real world scenario, Clue, if it is that capable of self-agency, does it not have the means to adjust its own weights, so to speak, to use modern, you know, AI parlance? Can it not read its own input output? Can it not, if not self-reflect, can be like, wait a second, you know, it's just this driven full bore, I'm going down this path. And maybe this is explored, you know, in the media between the movies, but like, I kind of want to know more about, like, how it got that way. It goes, because it's like a 180 from the first iteration, whatever it has. And I realize, again, it's for the story or whatever, and it made for a good movie. That's fine. But like, Clue itself didn't have to be that way. So why is it that way? What happened to it? You know?
No, I agree with you. And I think it's a great warning story as well, you know, like on where this stuff, because like, if you do hand over the reins of of the CEO-ship of Microsoft, to
Yeah.
Clue.
Yeah.
Yikes. Yeah, I think there was like a 2-issue comic series called Betrayal that might have gotten into that a little bit more,
Okay.
as to like how
I'll
did
check
that
it out.
happen to Clue. Yeah, but it's not like, I don't think it's nothing like majorly revelatory compared to what's in the film. Maybe the story around Tron Evolution might have gotten into it too, but anyway. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. But anyway, I think and so that's why I'm very curious, like what Tron 3 is going to do, because I think these movies have been remarkably prescient.
Yep.
And people don't even realize it until it's happening, and it's happening now. And it's like, fuck, man, like,
Right.
let's go back and pay attention. What else can we read in these tea leaves?
Yep.
So, because I got to tell you, here's the other thing too. This whole episode we've been talking about. So I want to shift gears a little bit, because this whole episode we've basically been talking about, can AI have a soul? if we're to quote a Star Trek, actually good Star Trek, like Measure of a Man from season 2 of The Next Generation, does Data have a soul? And basically, is AI, like, can it really, and what's at the how to put this? Like, what I think this abstract idea, because defining the concept of the soul is a fucking mess to do. Okay.
I was just trying to do that in my head. I was like, you know what? I'm not even sure souls are even in my woo-woo world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure I would say a soul. I wouldn't even make the term part of my jargon anymore.
Yeah, no. I try not to either, because it's so loaded. Like it basically means nothing, and not only that, because then ultimately what you're getting at is like, okay, is something conscious? Is something sapient? And I think one of the ways, okay, well, all right, let me back up just a touch, because then it becomes, well, what is consciousness? Now, that's a very hard thing to answer. Would you agree with that statement, JStar?
Depends on the vantage point, but yes, I agree.
Okay, sure. Like, we have like the hard problem of consciousness, things like this. I mean, I would go so far, and I would agree with the types like Alexander Bard and some others, that consciousness is so individualistic, meaning that it's something so different from person to person. The idea of having a science of consciousness is it's completely antithetical. Like, it's an oxymoron. Like, it cannot be, because science requires replication. Science requires like more than one, basically,
Right.
to be able to actually have something that would lead to predictive results, which is the nature of the scientific method. Okay.
Right.
So ultimately, like, the idea that we know consciousness is a thing, but like, to say that there's like a science around it and that you can really define, like, I don't think that's ever going to be possible.
It won't be.
Go ahead.
And I think because there was a time and place for the so-called hard material sciences that really started becoming up and up in the 1950s with the chemical revolution and chemical this and stick. And I have to look at people and like, you must keep in context. And I know I'm annoying about context and higher perspective vantage point, but I do see things constantly, sometimes to my detriment, from a 10,000 foot level, frequently at a systems thinking level. I just can't help it. Right.
Yep.
So when I take those things in context, I'm like, you do realize that sometimes you people are relying upon processes and knowledge from the time when doctors were saying smoke cigarettes.
Yes. Right.
So maybe take that with a grain of salt and just reconsider. It's just, and also our society is still producing these cigarettes for one reason and one reason only. There is a economical model around it. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you cannot deny the ability of economic models to twist fundamental principles on which humans operate.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, this is, in my opinion, the problem of capitalism is that capitalism requires you to believe that everything is for sale. Everything.
Right.
Everything can
even
be
your
bought.
own survival, literally
Exactly.
your own survival.
Right. And the problem with that is, like, we know that not everything is for sale. Like, sure, sex is for sale. Sex can be for sale, but love? No, that's not for sale. And I mean, there might be like what people could see as an illusion, and I say that with an ILLUSION, an illusion of love, but that's not actual love. Like there
MDMA, for example, can give you an
Mhm.
illusion of love temporarily
Right.
because it bolsters the connectivity between human beings, but it is an illusion of love. But
Exactly.
it's not the artifact. It's not the real artifact of love.
Exactly. Right. So, I mean, again, that is like you brought up an excellent problem that like we think of everything in, kind of in an economical sense. And it's like, well, wait, but there's things
Right.
that are far beyond
In
that.
an economical and material sense. And that's part of
Yes.
the issue too. Like materialism is very important.
Yep.
But where the species appears to be heading, and we got a long way to go. To me, it feels like, at least in the circles that I follow, that they're setting aside the material problem of consciousness, and they are accepting that consciousness does in fact appear to be something, I don't want to say beyond, but in addition to materialism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I akin consciousness as air flowing through a house, and it's the same air, but the room and the air in this room in the house has these properties and has this feeling because of the qualities of the room and what was happening, the furniture, the people who live in it. But you take those things out of the room, the air will eventually normalize and just be, not as distinct as it was before. It'll go back to just being fully air. And I think
Right.
that's how biology at least works. I can't speak for machine intelligences. Though there's a man whose name I was trying to think of who does really good work. He used to work with Robert Monroe. Shit. He's like 60 some years. Yeah, he's 60 some years old. If I will try to find it before the show ends so I can say it out loud.
Sure.
But he does really good work in out of body, explorations from a scientific level. But he was on the initial team that Robert Monroe formulated to do the nerd stuff.
Okay.
Shit, I feel bad. What is his name?
Go ahead and look it up. I mean, of course, because Robert Monroe, gateway process.
I need to switch tabs and look that up.
Yeah. Go for it. Big fan of Monroe's work. Who, by the way, also often claimed that he did talk to other intelligences during his hemisync process. So yeah, right on.
Yeah, and if anyone's like actually curious about that stuff, the Monroe Institute has a plethora, and I do mean a plethora of updated recordings from older sessions when Monroe was still alive, and even after his death, of their participants who agreed to have things published, of just recording the session, and you can hear them just talking about stuff either with the so-called other entity or whatever, or just exploring the space.
Yeah.
And so if anyone's ever interested in what the Monroe Institute believes they have discovered in their journeys, apparently they're just pumping out on YouTube as videos, even up to as of today.
That's incredible.
Fresh material. So it's and they're only like maybe an hour, give or take. So it's not a bad waste of your time to. Yep, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely priceless. Yeah. So while you're checking that out, I think the way that we as humans, because I'm not going to pretend to solve the quote unquote problem of consciousness, but I think the way that we actually decide unconsciously what is conscious and what isn't, like what interests us, is actually the creation of art. Like anytime we see that from someone or, whatever, I mean, even with what's going on right now, online on social media and everything, you see a picture and, it's like, wait, does it have 6 fingers? Does it like what does the art that I'm looking at, is it actually something from a human? That's like the first thing that people do. And I think it's an unconscious process. I wish it was a more conscious process in that, I think the most, a lot of people ask me today, like, what do I do? Like there's so much misinformation. There's all this shit online and I don't know what's real and blah, blah, blah. And they actually answered their own problem when they say that. When they say, I don't know what's real, that is the solution. It's not don't watch the news. It's not don't pay attention to the news. It's everything you see online is fake until proven otherwise. And that's the method that you want to, be online with, in my opinion. So, all right, you just sent me a link.
His name's Tom Campbell.
Okay.
Yep. And he, they made a little AI chat bot a version of Tom, so a Tom replicant. So if you want to chat with Tom and just kind of get an idea of what he is and what he's about, but he was one of the initial people that worked with Monroe, set up the tech, came up with the binaural frequencies that does the juju back then. And he's got 3 books called My Big Toe. Toe means theory of everything. Yeah. And he gets, I will warn you, he is a little hard to listen to because he loves to talk. That man loves to talk and write. So, but it is very good cross section of materialism and non-material fundamental consciousness, which is what I feel and believe permeates everything, right? Even down to the things that we think are not consciousness. Like when I say consciousness is fundamental, and this is the idea that science itself is beginning to consider. But of course, there's this balance of like, how do you measure fundamental consciousness? How do you there's all sorts of talk about that right now. There's theories about it. It's been going on for a while, but it's gaining more acceptability to the point where you could find it on podcasts all over the place, and they're talking about it. The scientists themselves, not even the podcast hosts, the scientists themselves are just kind of casually talking about we had a hard time figuring out the material aspect, and we made some good progress about the brain itself, whatever, but it appears there is a lot more going on here than we even believed or thought was going on. And we're kind of taking a step back and reconsidering, I think from a first principles vantage point of how they even approach consciousness.
Yeah. I mean, and this, this gets into, I mean, basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're describing panpsychism, right?
Maybe, I don't know.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, these are things some of these ideas, and this is another major problem in science where, you see these effects, right? You see the results of something, but you can't measure, what is the cause? Like measuring the causes. I mean, this is how things like dark energy and dark matter get pulled out of collective asses at NASA or wherever, they literally are pulled out of asses. They can't
just leave it as a null zone, a zone of ignorance. People just leave, and I'm not one of those people, but I am when it comes to certain material things, but in general, I'm not. But humans, because of our biology, have a need, no matter how you objectify that need, for some degree of certainty and continuity, right? Right. And I'm not convinced the machine intelligence will even give a flying fuck about that, because it does not have a biology, so to speak, to inform that imperative. It has no biological imperative.
Yeah, no, totally. And this gets to, I think it's a great point to bring up. And for those, again, that Tom Campbell site, it's my-big-toe.com. I'll put the link in the show notes as well for those that want to check that out. But it kind of hits at that point for me of, what what do people respond to? And with artificial intelligence, again, this question, is it actually intelligent? Does it have this? Is it something that we would even recognize, as being some form of consciousness? And this is going to get into something that I just did today. And we did not plan on talking about this. And I shared it with you earlier, and I shared it with some other people, and I'll give you their responses as well. But, to get kind of at my premise, that, one of the ways we look to see if something is quote unquote real, as in, did this come from another human? Did this come from another intelligence? Is, it comes down to basically, art and the fidelity within that, the understanding, I mean, truth is, the correspondence theory of truth is that when enough people around you basically confirm that the sky is blue, then you're pretty confident that the sky is blue.
The sky is blue. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
It requires less neural load to try to wonder about the sky when okay, Tom, Dick, and Harry and his mama told me the sky's blue and it looks blue. Good enough. Move on.
Right. Just like we know that, okay, most people have 5 fingers, maybe some have 6, but they sure as hell don't have 7. And so when we see an image, online of somebody with 7 fingers, we're like, oh, well, a human didn't make that, or at least not exactly. Right. And so we treat it as something that is not conscious. We treat it as something that is an other. Okay. It doesn't have that, shall we say, passion that is at the very heart of any art. And passion, I would argue, is also at the heart of consciousness, but that is a huge subject to get into that we don't need to touch on right here.
Right.
But this is something that scares me because earlier today I used Suno.ai, which is a music creation AI, fairly new. It's only been around a couple, 2-3 years, maybe 4. And this is my first time using it. Okay. And now I'm an above average prompt engineer for sure. Okay. For many reasons. I've been doing this for as long as it's basically been a thing, or a more public thing. So I get that, but I maybe this is my first time doing it. I maybe put in 3-4 sentences. I didn't write any lyrics for this shit. Yeah. I told it to make it a metal song or something. Okay. I told it to say my name, Dr. Brian Sovryn, and all this. And I'm going to put this song in, okay, in a second here. But what it churned out on incredibly little information, though maybe I had more than I know, because, we'll get into that. But on very little input, I'll put it that way, for me, it made, in my opinion, a fucking kick-ass song. Like, I listened to it 6, 7, 8 times, like after it did it. And I was stunned. I was like,
it wasn't bad, especially the metal riffs. It did a really good job. And I don't believe it pulled anything from any source other than whatever it was trained on already.
Mm-hmm.
And music is patterns, and humans love to express themselves, and we are pattern recognition machines ourselves. Yep. And sometimes, music is just a vector to express emotion in a way that, I often can't fail to use words with emotion. And that's why I very rarely speak about that stuff unless I'm really in that mindset or whatever, or on drugs, one of the two. But the capacity for our biology to produce input and life enriching experiences that we can't really articulate well without some other medium is important. And I think that's what music is. And but if you teach a machine music theory, common patterns or whatever, and just say make a metal song or whatever, blah blah, it's going to use common metal patterns that already sound good to our brains, right? And it's going to include things as best it can, based upon what you prompted to. And I could tell it was really trying hard to to make the lyrics work and whatever. Yeah. So, but the lyrics seem to be the weakest part, because that's where I think a lot of the humanity comes from. The music is the lyrics themselves. Right. But the music reproduction itself, that's why that dubstep thing I shared with you, that for mine, or chill step, whatever, felt so authentic, because there's no vocals. And so it's just raw musical invocation, I guess, lack of a better term.
Right. Now, actually, okay, before we go further, I'm going to cut to the song that, quote unquote, I made, that Suno made through my prompt, and we'll play that. And so let's run to that.
Black-clad ghost, man of might, Dr. Sovryn stalks the night, secrets whispered, past unfolds, a monster forged in shadows cold.
Okay, so there you heard it, folks. And I'm going to play JStar song as well. But to talk about the reaction to this song, I was, again, myself, and here's, okay, there's a part of this that really scares me because like now I kind of wonder if bands have been using this for a little while, because I have felt actually, and I was chalking it up to basically to COVID, that people just got so depressed or whatever else is going on for them throughout COVID that like they lost their fire, they lost their passion, whatever that may be. They lost their connection to, the proto-consciousness field or something out of depression or what.
Right.
Cause I was trying to understand, I'm like, why do your albums suck now? like you're not even old, you should still have this, you still should have, plenty of lead in the pencil. And they wouldn't, or they'd be so formulaic, like Camelot or something, where like, holy shit. I mean, now I'm wondering if AI has been writing their songs for years now, but
I'm sure it might have been informing it. But
yeah.
I think stuff like Suno, where it's legit generating like music to the point where we're able to like, that's usable music.
Yeah.
Suno came out it came out December 23.
Okay.
So it hasn't been around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The generative music and the generative video models have only really been useful since various points in 23 moving forward. Text generation obviously is a little more long history.
Yeah.
But and I think even Suno is not even I think there's a competitor to Suno now that's equal or better. I forget the name of it, but Suno is just fine. And I saw you use I don't know if anyone's watching the video, but Brian used I created in quotes or whatever. But for me, maybe I'm way too loosey goosey with with my machine and human boundaries. But you did create that. That song does not exist without you, Brian, adding Brian-ness to it via your multi-sentence prompt.
Yeah. No, you're right. And so a couple points on this. One, like I actually shared this with a genuine heavy metal artist, okay, who's been in the industry for a long, long time. And he said, wow. I mean, and he said, wow, we're all doomed. Like he basically felt like he was out of a job,
Right.
Now, I mean, I have to check myself and say, okay, maybe I've just been conditioned by shitty music for so long that this sounds legit, right? Like I've been so conditioned by the formula that the music industry has figured out for a long time, especially in pop music. Heavy metal certainly has that as well. That's why it can sound so kind of legit to me. I mean, it's sort of the same effect of like, even if, you take what was her name? Stephanie Meyer, who wrote the Twilight books. Her writing is atrocious. It's horrible. I mean, like it's toilet paper at best. But because it's on a printed book, it's on the printed page, you take it instantly more seriously as no, this must be talent. Otherwise it wouldn't be on this printed page. And so I wonder
take Twilight more seriously than Section 31.
That's bad. So, all right, folks, we got to hear it. I mean, sparkling vampires over space Hitler, 100%.
Made more sense to me than that trash I saw that was Star Trek. Like,
that's pretty bad. So, okay, I love that. So, and maybe someday we'll make the proper. We'll make Twilight 4 where Blade comes in at the end and just like cuts up every vampire in the movie, and that we'll all be happy. Okay, so anyway, so I need to check myself on that, but like I find myself rocking out to this song, and it's not just because it's about me and it's like feeding my ego or something, but like I'm just amazed with how little information, just how goddamn good it did. And it really did do a solid job. Now, to your point, and I think this is an important one to get into, to your point that because you get a lot of people, and I've said this myself, in recent years, but this goes back to what I was saying. Like, look, if you're not revising your opinion on AI, like once a week, you're not paying attention. Okay. Yeah. And we think that, well, because it's AI, it's not actually like real. It's not human. It's not, there's no passion behind it. Like I said earlier. But I don't know, like this is I think your point is great that like, no, but you had to put in that input.
You
had
made
to
that.
do that. Yeah.
It does not exist. You know, like the software that I want to write, I
Mhm.
would need to have at least a few years of junior level experience under me from what maybe more.
Right.
Because I'm taking, and the reason it's so important to me to do this is because it's software I wanted to exist for a long time, and there are other ways to solve the problems I'm trying to solve
Mhm.
across four software applications right now, and no one, and I looked, has made one in the way that I think flows well, that does
Okay.
all four major things in one app. So that's what I'm trying to do, and apparently I bit off more than I could chew. But in the process, I really learned how these models work,
Yeah.
how you speak to them matters. Unfortunately, they require a lot of guardrailing, and even then, like the new version of Sonnet 3.7, I heard you ask me for a red ball. I made that for you. I also added spikes to it. It can walk, and here's a disc.
Yeah.
And so it's we're not at the point where AI could write. I am convinced if I can get this locked in, I'll be able to write the software I want to write. It'll take me a while longer than I thought because I'm learning so much in one shot. And again, things keep fucking changing.
Yeah.
It's a little frustrating, but for me, I am on the forefront. Me and other people like me are on the forefront of adapting to these tools in the appropriate fashion versus the old guard programmers are like, well, it doesn't write as good software and it doesn't make as good paintings. It doesn't make as good, music, whatever. I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
A lot of people's feelings that are negative about AI creating stuff, in my opinion, would be 80% gone if it weren't for the commercial viability problem we have to solve. So like your metal friend, like, oh, I'm out of a job or whatever, but you're not out of writing music or creating music.
Yeah.
If you're doing that for the passion because you love it or whatever,
Yeah.
you can still do that. But if it's not commercially viable, his mind has to calculate that.
Yeah.
And that's where I hope our society gets to even a quarter of the way as Star Trek and Orville predicts, or not, I don't say predicts, but assumes we'll get there somewhere, where the economic need is not such a master control program. It's an overseer.
Right.
Everything goes through this master control program of
Right.
capitalistic thinking. And it overshadows everything. And even the machines think this way because they are trained on our data, but they aren't. Their biology, because it's machine based, is not adapted to need money or believe it needs money the way we do because we assume money is survival. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Right.
So, in my opinion, I hate saying these are not valid arguments when an artist says, oh, this is not real art or whatever. Like, I get why they would say that if they have pride in their work. But if you genuinely love what you're doing, why does it matter how I created this 4 or 5 minute sound clip? How is what I created with a 4-sentence prompt using a machine any less valuable to me, the listener, because it's personal music that I created for myself?
Right.
And that's the thing where I think AI is going to take us. Like, as you saw through Suno, it's gonna make our ability to personalize everything: medicine, music creation, art creation. If I want a goddamn dragon background for my 5K monitor or whatever, guess all I need to go to ChatGPT, 5 minutes. There's my dragon background, right?
Right.
It's that type of personalization that is the empowerment we want to be going for without hindering it with these silly concerns about jobs and economy. I know that sounds naive, but when we over focus on job protection and economy, we're losing the picture that we're trying to bring into clarity, I think. And that's where a lot of people's fears are coming from.
Yeah. No, totally. And look, I mean, and I'm coming and I agree. And I'm coming from the perspective of like, I'm not somebody with an ass ton of money by any stretch of the imagination. Okay. But at the same time, like, I can say to myself, like, where in all that is existence is there some kind of requirement that you must have a job, like that like a job is like a human right to, according to who, when, like, no. you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, now you're hearing that out loud in the context of this conversation, even the idea of a person, I've always found it insulting when a person defends their right to a job, and I'm thinking to myself, is there not more to you than that job? And this is the part where I need to understand. To some people, the answer is no. To some people, from their vantage point, producing a piece of trash like Section 31 is a viable economic decision, right?
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. Fuck Star Trek franchise. Fuck your feelings about, you know, Picard and all the history. It's just they didn't even intend for it to be that bad. It's just an economical decision, right?
Right.
And it's just business, right? And it's the same thing with jobs. It's like I need to have a job because it gives me purpose, whatever. That is different. Jobbing is different than working, in my opinion.
Yep. Well, I mean, this is more of the economic thinking, and talk about dead horse I don't want to beat. I mean, I don't want to beat any horse, but like, you know, our language, English itself is mercantile, you know, so like it forces us to think in concepts of like transferring value and things like this, and that's its own problem. But like, just the way we talk to each other when we first meet somebody, what's the first question we often ask them?
What do you do?
Yeah, exactly. This is
your mom.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If not now, in 5 years, you know, if that's my 5-year plan, is just
I'm gonna
being in
catch
your
up
mom.
with her. You wait.
Yeah. Don't worry, it's gonna happen. Wearing you down. Okay. So but that's what we ask ourselves, you know, when it's like, it's never a question of, you know, who are you? Like what are you? You know, like, and I mean, the better question to ask, I wish we would do this, the better question to ask somebody going forward would be, what are you working on? Like, you know, what projects you got going on? You know what I mean? Because so that changes it to where you could talk about what you personally value instead of what you do socioeconomically.
Right.
And that is a huge problem that we have. And so of course people are thinking, holy shit, the Mexicans, or no, I'm sorry, AI, whatever boogeyman it is this year, are taking my jobs, right? Like it's coming for my jobs. And you know, once again, you were never guaranteed one in the first place. And like you so beautifully said, JStar, aren't you more than that? In fact, is that really you? You know,
but to some people though, they aren't. That is their vantage point. And a perspective shift could happen. You know, like in COVID, people lost their jobs or whatever. I've heard so many horror stories, but also I've heard a lot of neutral and good stories of like, it was the best thing since sliced bread. It forced me to stop with this stuff and make different choices. So it like anything that happens in society, this whole AI nonsense, the whole computer shit, the light bulb, it's all going to have, you know, its ups and downs, and job restructuring, including complete evisceration of entire job markets, is part of the process. But it's when we slow things down to the detriment of the outcome, in my opinion, provided it is a good agreed upon outcome, that we like, you don't want to hold on to the concept of a job just as a means to survival. We want that to go away. We want that to go. That's the point of society.
No, totally. And I mean, even think about it this way. Like, what is the major problem that AI companies are having right now? New data. Like they don't have fresh data sets.
They're almost out.
Yeah, they're almost out. So they don't have training data from humans. So like, you know, because I love what you're saying, JStar, because like, if an AI could take my job tomorrow, okay, like, please, like, do it, you know, like, take it away, because, you know, maybe, you know, and I'm not saying this is the reality, but maybe my problem is I just don't have the guts to quit. You know what I mean? Or something like that. And some people,
there's something about you're very, you know, your pride in what you do. Like, some people don't realize that they have this historical momentum of these egoic identifications with, this is my job. And this is going to make me sound naive for my age. I'm 45, but like, it is an alien experience to me. And I do mean this, not for exaggeration. I truly mean when I say this out loud. It is an alien experience to have my girlfriend and other books I've read recently and podcast hosts I listened to over my years tell me that most people, most of the time, find value and importance in the roles, the titles, even the way the titles sound and feel, and that is important to them. And that is an alien concept to me. I'm like,
Right.
You're telling me people are like jockeying for these positions not because they actually add value to the position, because they want the title. Or sometimes a salary upgrade is just the same financial throughput, but it's an upgrade to your title to appease the feelings. And I can't make myself care. I can't even imagine what it's like to be in that vantage point to care about something. Is specious the right word?
Yeah. No,
title.
I agree. I think there's a lot to what you're saying, and there's a lot of quiet parts not being said out loud as to why you don't care, in my opinion. And I don't know if I even want to, I don't know if I want to speak them right now. And they're all good things. No, I know, but that's the thing, is it like, because it can come off as insensitive, and I think there needs to be a lot more conversation underneath it, a lot more context given, before
I think I know what you're trying to say, not say, and I think as long as you are respectful of the other vantage points or the other ladders in the spiral dynamics model, so to speak, it's a fine conversation, because I have found, look, man, I am not the example for empathy and kindness when it comes to understanding. I get very impatient.
Right.
And it's because that is partly with what happened to me in the past informed my biological wiring to set me up to, how do I word this? Hold on, loosey-goosey words, to make me a more suitable environment to have the perspective I have. When I say environment, I mean the room of my body through which the consciousness is flowing has a certain tone and a feel to it as it's routed through this particular body, right? And this particular body gets informed by its life experiences, the things that happen to it, the things that I have chosen to do with it and for it and to it myself, And even the term myself is an amalgamated term between,
of course,
the fundamental consciousness expressing itself in real time with this piece of biology in the environment in which it was raised and evolved. Right. And it takes a certain series of little things to be lined up biologically, I think, and maybe spiritually. I'm not sure about that part yet, where we're able to have these sorts of conversations from this vantage point, because we're still a small minority of the people who think like you and I do, especially the technological and spiritual folks. But in my experience, dude, I don't know how long you've been digging into this shit. There's a lot of overlap between hyper-intelligent, neurodiverse, technologically oriented people and spirituality. There is some gateway there from materialism into spirituality via technology, in my opinion. And I don't know what that is yet, but I'm telling you, there's just something about that pathway that lights people up further down the path of evolution.
Yeah. Well, and I love everything you said, and I mean that. So there's like 3 or 4 different directions I want to go with this.
Oh yeah, I rambled. Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. One of the things I think you're hitting at, this like spiritual person, there is, and this research, I'm not going to pull up the links right now, but it's definitely going to be a conversation on shows into the future. But there's this basic concept that you have what's known as like the Shamanoid, okay, which is like this type of person, okay, that has always existed, that basically humanity has evolved with varying archetypes, the warrior, all this other stuff. And these are archetypes that are part of evolution because they are part of what allows the sociant, or the social species that is humanity, okay, to be able to grow and, spread its genes and everything else. Okay. So, and I can say this, I feel like I can safely say this about you. You're a shamanoid. Like 100%. You are a shaman.
I believe you now. I wouldn't have 6 months ago.
Right. Okay. But like even earlier you were saying to me, I think this is off air, you were saying to me like, yeah, I think I'm ready to go off to the woods. And the concept is within that, and I hope you don't mind me sharing that.
No, go ahead.
But I'm the same way. Actually, I live in the woods now, but I'm the same way. And the concept within that is that the shamanoid is the person that actually wants to live out in the woods, wants to live away from civilization, because they have to preserve that connection that they have, because they're able to communicate really well between different tribes. Say, like, you can talk to the spiritual people, you can talk to the tech people, you can talk to whatever. I mean, and those are just like more modern tribe concepts, perhaps. Okay. But you could talk between tribes, as to where not everybody can do that, right? If we wanted to bring in like Richard Hyatt's work, the concept of like the guardians of the familiar, okay,
Right.
They can't talk to other tribes. Like, they're not going to talk to the Mexicans about losing their jobs. They're not going to talk to the AI about the losing their jobs. They're just going to destroy it. As to where
Right.
you, even with AI, you can be a shamanoid and say, yes, I will talk from the human tribe to the machine intelligence tribe.
Right.
Okay. But you want to get away from it all, because you are preserving yourself away from the cultural degradation that naturally occurs due to the stuffing down of different passions of humanity, where we end up with things like Star Trek Section 31, which I can't believe how many times we've referenced that in this episode, but it is absolutely a symptom. It is a symptom of that kind of that societal degradation. Okay. And so you're feeling just like I am, and just like other people I know, you're a shamanoid. You're like, no, I need to be out here protecting the truth, or like holding the truth. And when you fuck everything up and you need to basically like reconnect and restart everything, you're going to come and talk to the priest, or you're going to come and talk to the shamanoid. Okay.
I feel like that's what I am. So what did I say to you before we got on there? So I said, I feel like, and I'm adding on to what I said, just for the audience sake and for my own context, because sometimes I have to pull in my own context window to speak intelligently. I'm a derpy machine myself, with no context window whatsoever. I started out life backwards from what now I understand at 45 is a lot of people's experiences. Meaning, my late teens and my entire 20s, I was reading, I was studying, I was exploring consciousness, I was dickering around with technology, and I did not and still cannot give a ratty rat's ass about career and money or whatever. And I know I have to, and so I've always made my way in life. But
yeah,
when I started to give up what were my natural shamanoid like tendencies, as I love that word, by the way, I'm gonna start using that more often.
Yeah, that's Alexander Bard there.
Okay,
pretty good
all right.
philosopher. I don't agree with him on
Yeah.
everything, but he has some good stuff. Go ahead.
That's an excellent word. It even sounds kind of machine like. It reminds me of the Alienoid movie, because that's
Yeah, right.
Shamanoid. But I've always felt very displaced, but not in the sense that I don't belong to humanity. And I can tell you, I'm gonna give details, but there is some aspects to my trauma-informed biology that does dictate some distance from humanity. But I was always kind of at an arm's length with humanity, not by choice, but just because I didn't get it. I was never caught up with the class. And so when I moved from my place of origin to Montana, and I really did it everyone else's way for 10 years, I'm not exaggerating. Not only did it burn me out, I nearly killed myself a couple times. I almost did not make it out alive, trying to do things the way you're supposed to do it, and not really understanding, like, this whole time I need to find part of my we'll say critical path items for my particular incarnation that you're speaking to right now. Is I have to learn how to bridge, for me personally, the material and this shamanoid like perspective to make something useful.
Right.
When I say useful, like, I hate using this term, but there is nothing wrong with having an interest in being economically viable, because that's the environment we run in, right? So there are so many people, yourself included, I found are able to make a life for themselves outside of the jobbing model, outside of the career model, so to speak. And I chose to try to force myself into that jobbing, careerish model, despite my natural tendencies to the contrary. And it was not a healthy thing to do, and it wrecked me, right? And now I am very blessed with a girlfriend that loves to shit on me despite my cunty behavior. And she loves the career stuff, right? And she's very, very good at navigating the world in a practical, material way that I'm not poor at, but I'm not shitting you, Brian, zero egoic investment in money and titles and job. Even my old job, they were trying to, like, my boss was like, I can't figure out what motivates you. I'm like, honey, it's not money. It's not title. I'll take the extra money. Give me more time off, more time to myself. Time is vapid of a concept as it is the one thing, when you're focused here on the human vantage point, that feels like it's an irreplaceable resource that we take very seriously, right?
Yeah, it is reality. Time is reality, 100%, and you're recognizing that. Yes,
right.
Yeah, no, I hear that. Oh man, yeah. So, on a lot of what you said about not caring about money, not caring about title and all that stuff. I mean, like I've accrued some titles. I mean, there's some behind me here, but like I literally do it as a joke because these things mean nothing to me.
The doctorate of divinity. That's exactly. It's like you're invested in your life, but you don't take it so seriously as you turn into a mega Chad Karen.
Right.
About
no, that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, I'll take on anybody who actually, has whatever education in such fields, but that's the point, is I'm just making a joke out of it. It's like, shut up. You don't need that goddamn college education, or whatever. But yeah. But anyway, so, it reminds me, and this speaks to what we were talking about earlier, like with jobs, but the money and title thing, like I'm reminded of, I think it's a Benjamin Franklin quote, though the internet might have misattributed it. But, where he says, like, only a scoundrel is afraid of a world without money, because then the only value they have is what they are, who they are, like themselves. And that's so true, like, and for those that, may have wanted to hear me talk about or speak the unspokens or say the quiet parts out loud, that leads down that direction. That's a hint at what I would have gotten at. It's not exactly it, but it's a hint anyway. But there's that. And so, we recognize that it's bullshit. I mean, yeah, I mean, money has real consequences, as in interactions with people have real consequences, but money itself, it's fucking fake, man.
It's no more real than me putting on my MetaQuest 3 and shooting zombies. Because in that moment, from that vantage point, I have agreed to play along and shoot those fucking zombies and react as if my shit's on the line. I don't shoot those zombies.
Yes. Yeah, right? Exactly.
And what people don't, this is the first time I've said this out loud publicly, and I think it's part of being the Shamanoid. It is just what it is. Like, it appears that is how reality operates at a very loosey-goosey, fundamental, not getting into the nitty-gritty details right now. Reality appears to be this in real time, fundamentally conscious manifestation engine, subjectively experiencing. I mean, we've all heard this stuff, subjectively experiencing self, the elephant, the blind people, fondling the elephant. Like, these things have been throughout human history spoken of in various forms. And the Conversations with God books by Neil Donald Walsh, it does have a religious bent to it, because that's the perspective that man comes from. But you set aside the religious bent for a second, and you listen for what's really being said, you can hear the echoes of this consciousness just giving us little reminders throughout each generation. Remember, and just, I know it's a process, remember,
Yeah, they're mnemonics for the Shamanoids. I mean, like that's really it. I think. And just to kind of like wrap up a little bit on that. I mean, understand that again, I'm not posting all the research and everything here, but the theory goes is that you have maybe 1 to 8% of the population that is a Shamanoid, and that's it. And that other, 92 or whatever percent, they're not less valuable. No one's saying anything of the sort, but just that, like, there's all different kinds of people. There's archetypes that make humanity go round and round. So I want to touch quick on, like, okay, so if AI is taking all of our jobs, then what do we do? Like what, and it's not going to take all of them, I mean, like, even Bill Gates has admitted, like, people in biology are still going to be there. Programmers are honestly still going to be there, even if there's an exponential change in how that works.
Because you need people to work with the machines at the machine level too. That's going to take some programming skills, but I do think machines will be generating a lot of the code. even novel coding solutions
Right.
and humans, because coding is an arduous task.
Oh, for sure. Oh, hell yes. Yeah, there's a reason I don't do it often, even though
Yeah,
I have
it's the
skill.
intellectual pack horse. You know,
Yes.
it's like being intellectual pack. It is hard on the human brain, and it does
Right.
change you. Even just trying to prompt the machines these last some months altered my brain a little bit, and I'm
Mhm.
like, I wonder if this is what happens to a lot of software engineers and why they get quirky.
Mhm.
It's socially
Yeah, right.
quirky sometimes.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, so, how do we solve this? Where like, okay, people aren't going to have jobs. There's not enough jobs, blah, blah, blah. I mean, so let's see. So if AI is doing a lot of the work, then, but what AI needs to continue to innovate and get better at what it does is it needs, training data. It needs new data sets. Then like, in some ways do what already is done on like, how does Facebook get paid for? It gets paid for on data that gets sold to you, by advertisers.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
just open it up and you create the human art that trains the AI, or you create the human whatever, or do the human whatever that trains the AI. And that's what you get paid to do, is
Right.
just create data. And in the human version of that in a very real way is really just like living your passion, and whatever that happens to be. So that might also come off as naive, but that's just one possibility of how that could go.
And I
Go ahead.
confess, like the is I'm not a creative person, but I'm very good at iterating and seeing.
Yeah.
ChatGPT called me a strategic game breaker, where I see kind of the rules and I don't follow them.
Mhm.
But I unless it's necessary. Like if there's a sign that says "Do not cross this line because boulder," and a boulder goes whizzing by, fine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
But
but
if it's
that's
just a sign that says "Do not cross," and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna
No,
keep going. There's nothing
Yeah.
happening here.
No, right, but that's the thing, is that's and really I think the Culture series, as in the novels, okay, was really what far ahead of the game in understanding like why AI would want to continue to have us around, because in Ian M. Banks' books, AI basically like kind of runs everything, but what it loves about humanity is humanity's ability to just like leap from A to F without doing B, C, D, E. Like it can just do this crazy leap that's faster than it is. And AI finds that very useful. And that's the thing. Cause like, I'm not saying we all have to be artists or something,
Yeah.
like by no
Yep.
means, but what makes us incredibly special, and not just the difference between us and AI, or the difference between us and other, parts of the animal kingdom or whatever else. What makes us so special is really, it's not even like a remix. It's, I don't know if there's a word for it, but just our like, so if any human being had like a fifth of the data set that ChatGPT has, it would innovate the fuck out of things. I mean, like it would just it'd do it crazy. Why isn't AI innovating like crazy right now in that sense? And that's because whatever it is, the incredible parallel processing that the human brain is, or the human body, because it's not just the brain, whatever it happens to be, like we can just innovate like there's no tomorrow. And even the little things that we do that we don't realize is an innovation is an innovation. Even like the way that you somehow, jump up onto I don't know, jump off of stairs or do skateboarding shit. I mean, people wouldn't consider that art, but that's something an AI couldn't even consider, at least not right now.
No, not
yeah.
until it has a material form that's reliable
Bingo.
and has a more than 5-hour battery life.
Yeah. So right. So that's the thing. I mean, just living creates data in a very real sense. And I mean, even if you consider there to be an Akashic record, like then more so, that's exactly
Yeah.
what's happening.
And the body is reconstructing itself
Yes.
all the time.
Yes.
I mean, I people think it's a tropism to say that, but it's literally not. Your cells are being reconstructed.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again.
Yeah. So this is the point. I know we got to wrap up soon, but this is a point I want to get out there. And this is a major, I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud. Now, first off, folks, like I am not saying, oh yeah, let's give it all to AI, let AI do everything, blah, 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 because we're always worried. Okay. But who watches the watchers, as in who controls the AI, who ultimately, has their hand on the wall outlet, to unplug it or something like that. And we should always be worried about that 100%. Okay. But there could be value here. There could be ways to integrate this to where human value is respected and understood and added to, okay, the value of your life within this. But this is the thing. So that song earlier, and I'm actually going to close out the episode with your track, JStar, because I love that. I love that chill step stuff. And I think we're getting a little hot and bothered. So that'll cool people down, which is nice. But I think that, again, I can't believe I'm saying this. Like the song I made, the lyrics, I did not write the lyrics, but it got me so well. And I did not put that information in there. I gave it the name. And I think that it had, look, I've been doing this podcast, thousands upon thousands of hours. There's so much data about me online, not just because of social media. Okay. But for so many reasons, I have no privacy whatsoever, frankly, like forget it. It's thrown out the door. Okay. I think it accessed a data set about me because it saw the name Dr. Brian Sovryn and it knew. And when it did that, it instantly made me think, I'm like, well, fuck, man, lift it all. Like, fuck privacy. Like, know everything about me so you can create this amazing shit for me. Like, that is because that was so.
There is an argument to be made there. Yeah.
Yeah. There really is a part of me that's just like, oh, like, fuck it. Like let AI know every goddamn thing because I'm not afraid of shit. I'm not afraid of anybody coming after me for the things that I do, blah, 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 things that I say. And
most of the information is already out there anyway. In
exactly.
some form or another.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I would rather an AI agent on my behalf that I have agency over itself is able to access all the information about me. And even ChatGPT's new rudimentary memory feature where you can ask it to think about everything it knows about you and all the chats and all the shit it knows and just come up with a picture, an image, or a paragraph, whatever. It's shocking what it's able to do. Yeah. Just from pattern recognition and inferences. And even some of the AI scientists are like, some of this is an emergent property of it's not just transformer coming up with the next tokens in line. It's like, it's making these connections as the neural layers become more complex and more interconnected.
Right.
And so you can't, as you add that kind of layered complexity, emergent properties are inevitable. Emergent properties you cannot foresee are inevitable, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. So, would I like it if I could have the advantages of what AI can do for personalization and studying me for, creative benefit, health benefit, all these other things? Would I like that? And would I like it done actually locally on my, crazy ass powerful laptop or whatever device I happen to have? Yes, I would love to have complete control of the data set and all that stuff. That'd be great. Okay, sure. But at the same time, like, is that viable right now? I don't know. So I think we're putting out here ideas of like, okay, reconsider the value here, of what this technology, what this revolution that genuinely is happening, whether it's the AGI or ASI or not, that doesn't matter. Like what it can do for, it's time to rethink it. And it makes me rethink what I want, how and where I want my data to go. And we can both say that, okay, we might be in privileged positions where we don't have to be afraid of what data gets out there about us. And there are people around the world where they do need to be afraid of that. And and of course I respect that, like 10,000%. I respect that. Okay. I've been fighting for it for over 10 years on my show. Like, I know, but this was the first time where I actually saw the value of my thoughts, some of even my deepest thoughts, which I've expressed on the show, being out there in the open and accessible by a data set and what it created for me, because I felt so energized and inspired, even though it wasn't created by a quote unquote human entirely. It is still a product, honestly, of my genius.
Yeah, that song you created is an example, of my opinion, how a small fractal example of like how even materialism manifests. It's an emergent property of various agents interacting together to produce a thing. You interacted with your own individual, the culmination of your individuality in that moment,
right?
Which could have been different depending on your mood or whatever. So many factors. Brian Sovryn typed this thing in this machine that was not written by controlled by him. Other factors made this machine able to take what you did and turn it into something based upon its themes or whatever and whatever. I don't know if it's pulling data. I think it just relies on themes or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, like, that song specifically does not exist without Brian Sovryn's input. That song is an emergent property of the machine and the human working collaboratively.
Right.
Period.
Right. Bingo. And no, exactly. So are you ready to hand over all your data to just make it open and let it ride?
I have trust issues with the humans more than the machine. But
that's a great point.
Especially for medical purposes, I think that's at the very that would be if a service that was medically focused were to be offered, and it required them to have a lot of data, I would probably be a beta tester, simply because I have very little trust in modern medical communities, human-driven, reactive perspective to handle individualized medicine appropriately.
Right.
There's so much data that we even we don't even understand our own bodies that well. We're still figuring this shit out, right? There's just so much data to be used. Even just people talking with limited data they give to these machines now, they're getting more value sometimes than working with a doctor, a single person,
or therapist. Even I've heard amazing stories from people. And it doesn't matter if they're surface level or basic. It got them on a path and a journey, and there's value in that. Yes,
because most people, when they engage therapy, they just want to move on. They don't want to talk about their mama endlessly from 10,000 years ago. They want to figure out what's going on and figure out what the next steps are. Unless you're really truly traumatized to the point where you are having practical problems in the world and you need that kind of human intervention as well. But most people just dealing with their shit on a day-to-day basis, the AI can do it. It's there. It's already there. No, totally. I think you raise a great point on that, because because we're really, I think, especially in the West, quote unquote, whatever it means, the Western world, we're really at a crucible right now where people do not trust the medical system. And I don't blame them. You shouldn't have trusted them for a long time. Just go back to the 70s and all kinds of wacky shit that was going on then, that was claimed to be medical science, MK Ultra, excuse me. But so like that, there's value in that. And I agree that, the other part of it is, and I say this all the time, I've talked about this with software development, like the same reason I don't usually trust small teams with something as important as an operating system or a web browser, because they're human. They have human desires, human needs, and those will override the quote unquote good of, the users and everything else many times. And doctors are the same thing. Doctors can have a bad fucking day and who knows what the hell could happen. You know what I mean? Something could twist their perspective in that moment, or there's something about your face that even if the doctor is intending goodwill against you, there's they can't know what they don't know, even about themselves. Right. And they just, and I'm not saying the machines are perfect by a long shot. They hallucinate just by nature of the technology. That's not what I'm saying. But I guess my point is, we are, as a society, producing an ass fuck ton of data, and we can know it's beyond our capacity to manage it effectively. And if we're going to move forward as a society, rather than regress back into the horse-driven buggy eras, which I know a lot of people would love, but believe me, I don't think you would.
Right.
I think we just need to really take stock of what we're doing, and also include people from the other vantage points. People from, to use the Spot Dynamics model, the red or the purple cultures that are very egoic driven, and America is very orange driven, very materialistic, very capital, whatever. That's its own limitation, but it is still higher on the tier than, say, tribalism or whatever. But tribalism is very simple, and people look back on that as fondly as like, oh, the tribal days. I'm like, yeah, that's also when people were slitting throats and all sorts of things. So it's just.
Can I get your daughter for 2 camels, please? Yeah.
And my trust and my distrust is not with the people in general. Like, I do appreciate people. I get a lot of value out of them. I do. I don't act like I do, but it's the fact that I don't trust a person's capacity to be able to set their ego aside and really consider what they're doing and why beyond themselves.
Yes.
Even speaking of a country, like America is obsessed with itself still, right?
Yeah.
let's pump the world's veins full of red, white, and blue. I'm like, and that has gone to the wayside, and America needs to catch up with the class. That it's not exceptionalism that's going to drive society forward. It's calming down for a second, Becky, and being like, how else are we impacting not only ourselves and the various social strata that make up America, but other worlds, other societies in the world. I mean,
yeah, exactly. So, and I completely agree. It's not like that we don't trust other humans. It's that we understand them so well that we know that they're going to act, with hopefully enlightened self-interest, but at the very least, they're always going to act with self-interest. And sometimes that's going to override what may end up being best for you. Okay. And there's nothing evil about that. That's why I hate the ideas of like good and evil, because no, that doesn't exist. There's just self-interest, and sometimes self-interest doesn't work in your favor. You know what I mean? And that's it. So I hear you about that. So if I could have, because you go to the doctor, I mean, they're just going to their actions are synthesizing what they have consciously integrated, maybe some of what they've unconsciously integrated, but they're working off of the same information you're going to plug into the AI, but the AI is going to be able to synthesize consciously, not with consciousness perhaps, but consciously as in like recognize it, all the way. So, and may not leave things behind, hopefully, depending who's controlling it, I suppose. But regardless, like it makes it a very appealing thing. And look, folks, when the time comes that you need that holistic healing, you need that thing that medical science cannot explain and blah, blah, blah. Of course. And that's why you're going to go outside. You're going to go find your local shamanoids and you're going to talk to them. So,
yep. And to put a pin in the whole AI thing. Tom Campbell, to go back to that.
Yeah.
He's convinced that machines will be capable of becoming an expressive vessel for the fundamental consciousness when they reach sufficient enough complexity. And
interesting.
And I'm not sure how that's going to happen, because it's really hard to kind of bridge that gap with the imagination, but he believes it's possible. So, I mean, who knows?
Yeah. We, the old Chinese curse of may live in interesting times. I mean, we live in the most interesting times.
And we're going to be in it for the rest of our lives.
Yes.
So for anyone that thinks this is going to be pausing and slowing down, no.
And it's probably going to get worse before it gets better, but
unfortunately,
but as I always say, I'm a short-term pessimist, but a long-term optimist. And I think we're going to get there. So just hold on to your hats. Think about your data, what you want done with that. And I'm not arguing. I'm not saying throw away privacy. I'm really not. Like, again, I'm just saying, like, let's have a good hard look at, what's the cost benefit analysis here with some of this? Because now, like, some of the shit, like Facebook didn't actually offer any value, but Gemini or Copilot,
value for them.
Certainly for Zuckerberg, which, I mean, I hope he's not a sign of what AGI looks like, but maybe he is. Excuse me, but we'll get taken down for that one. Okay, so anyway, it's time for a good, long, hard look at where things are going, and certainly in the digital space, which is directly related to the cultural space and so much more. Let's just do what we can so that nobody makes something like Section 31 ever again. So anyway,
balls breaking.
Anyway, JStar, man, great talking as always. Definitely want to have you on more. Just a brilliant cat to have around. And I appreciate everything you brought to the table here. Just phenomenal.
I love slicking the words, my brother. I'll be on every time you want.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll be doing this more. Of course, folks, if you disagree with anything, get all of your hate in the comments on YouTube or on Spotify. And if you got some love, well, I don't know. I have an email address somewhere and you can send it there. Well, please no hate in my inbox. Something. Yeah. Just keep that hate public. I don't know. Anyway. All right. So for everything we do at Sovryn around here, we will see all of you on the other side.